Growing up, I was a prodigy. Every class was easy to me, I aced every test, I was in countless academic extracurriculars, but I was also very lonely. I was bullied at school, I was misunderstood by all the people around me, and I had a terrible life at home. But the one thing that kept me going was everyone telling me that someday I would be a special person, that I was already a special kid. And this was the only validation or praise I received. So I held on to that belief that someday I would be legendary, that in whatever field I pursued, I would go down as one of the greats. So I worked hard and focused all my energy on being the best, because that was all I had. Being special and having the potential to be unforgettable helped me tune out the abuse, the heartache, and the pain of my childhood. So I graduated high school with honors, almost a full associate's degree, and with a seemingly bright future ahead of me. Then I entered the real world. I was already pretty burnt out and depressed by the end of my senior year in high school, but I couldn't have anticipated the struggles I was about to endure. When I graduated high school, I was smoking cigarettes constantly, I was drinking wherever my 18-year-old self could get a hold of any alcohol, and I was in one of the darkest points in my life mentally. I started college that fall as an interior design major, and quite frankly, I didn't even really care about that career path. I just couldn't handle the pressure of my parents pushing me to have a major in something. I was in a bad place and didn't leave this place for a long time. I dropped out of college at 19 due to financial aid issues, moved out early, and worked countless terrible jobs just to barely get by. I was evicted from 2 different apartments, had to move back in with my parents at one point, got a car repossessed, and got addicted to marijuana and alcohol. I cut off my parents in early 2022, got in an abusive relationship later that year, and my addiction got worse after ending that relationship. My life was pretty bad for a long time. To me, the straight-A student from 2018 was dead and quite possibly never existed. I questioned if I was ever really smart, if I was just telling myself that to feel better about myself, that maybe the only reason I got good grades was because I understood how to take tests and passed them more than I actually learned anything. I had failed so hard when I got into the real world and thought to myself that I was never smart and I had nothing to be proud of. For years I stayed a college dropout, stopped painting or drawing, and stopped doing anything that required intelligence or creativity, because in my head I no longer qualified for those things. I was just the dumb stoner dropout, and that was never going to change. In late 2023, I started to feel sick. I was sick all the time. This was due to the fact that, in this point in my life, I was always high, drunk, or both. I had gained well over 100 pounds and was probably at the lowest point in my entire life. On December 9th, 2023, I woke up after a 3-day weekend of partying with a friend and felt the most sick I had felt in my entire life. I was convinced corpses would feel healthier than I did in that moment. Then I snapped. I went on my Facebook and made a post telling all my friends that I would be going sober. My life didn't get immediately better overnight, but it did get better. As of writing this, I have remained sober for 6.5 months. I started going back to school, I worked on my spending habits, and I lost all the weight I gained, and I'm still pushing to lose more weight. I also met an amazing person that made all this work possible, and for the first time in my entire life, I am genuinely happy. However, there's still a part of me that feels broken. A part of me that still hurts and hasn't fully healed. I am currently going to trade school so I can work on cars. I love cars and they're a passion of mine. I like machines and I find them fascinating. And so far, I have really been enjoying the program I'm in. However, there's a part of me that yearns for more. A part of me that thinks to myself, I was supposed to do more with my life, or I was supposed to be special. This doesn't come from a place of me feeling like I am better, smarter, or stronger than others, but it comes from a place of feeling like I'm a disappointment to others and to myself. My whole childhood, I was told I was someone special, that I was destined for great things. In my head, I worry that trade school is just me settling, that I could do more with my life, and that if I don't, my life doesn't amount to anything. It means I'm not special, I'm not important, I'm not what people expected me to be, and I do not have meaning or worth. I'm not the only one to go through something like this. Gifted kid syndrome happens to a lot of bright children or children with talent. They are told relentlessly that they are worth something. And when they get depressed or burnt out, they wasted their lives, or they are failures. There's so much pressure, not just on gifted kids, but children in general, to be great at something, that by the time they graduate high school, they need their whole lives figured out. If you have an undeclared major, you're wasting time. If you take a gap year, you're lazy. We live in a culture that praises individuality as long as that individuality is useful. Don't get me wrong, ambition and drive can be great things, but at what cost? There's also a stigma against pursuing dreams that are outside the safe ambitions. If you want to be in a creative field, you are immediately reminded of the starving artist stereotype, or you're reminded of how Van Gogh wasn't famous till he was dead and you're lucky to get that far. It doesn't even have to be a creative line of work. There's many careers or aspirations that don't fit the preset definitions of success or status. And when a child expresses interest in them, they are often met with, no, that's not the right dream. This is what you should actually want. As a child, I faced this issue constantly. I might have had stricter and more rigid parents than most, but if my dream was anything beyond being a lawyer, I was told any number of reasons why I shouldn't do it. Because of this, I wasn't ever given the space to figure out what I truly wanted. I was in the position of, if I don't follow the career they want me to, my parents will not love me. Many children seek the approval, love, and respect of their parents, and many will do what it takes to get it, especially if their parents keep them at an arm's length. Another thing in our society is the idea that success is all or nothing. You're either on the cover of Forbes or you're broke. People who look for the paths that make them comfortable or happy are considered people that gave up or settled. But many willfully ignore the cost of greatness and success. This theme is executed very well in one of my favorite films, Whiplash. In this movie, a young drummer named Andrew is going to a prestigious music school and catches the eye of a legendary instructor named Terrence Fletcher. Fletcher is a ruthless, off-color, and abusive instructor that will do anything to ensure the greatness of his students, even at the expense of their well-being. He is obsessed with the idea of creating the next great musician, and Andrew is obsessed with the idea of being the next great musician. Between the two, they have a psychological war to reach this goal, a very violent war. Andrew doesn't care what it takes for him to be remembered. He sacrifices relationships, his health, and his sanity in hopes he will get there. The key question this movie poses is the price you pay for greatness worth it? And I remember watching this movie for the first time, and I got the wrong takeaway from this message. In a sense, I am like Andrew. I am desperate for widespread recognition and would do anything to get it. Many of us are. We all crave validation at various extremes, and the more ambitious and passionate you are, the larger the audience you crave. But I saw this movie as an inspiration to work harder. I recognized the sacrifice to be great and was motivated to make that happen, but did not acknowledge the strain it would cause on my mental health. But over time, the message of the movie began to sink in. I fought the idea tooth and nail, but I recognized that greatness isn't so great. I remembered all the heartache I went through every time I create an amazing piece of art that took weeks to make, and I almost got no recognition for it, at least online. I remembered when I created my last video essay over the course of 3 months and it only got 80 views. I stopped creating for fun or escape and was creating art purely because I was clinging on to the idea that the project I was working on would be the piece that finally got me the recognition I craved. I deeply craved the recognition for my work, recognition that I stopped getting after graduating high school. I wanted so desperately to feel special again, but with each project I only found more and more heartbreak. Something that touches on this theme is BoJack Horseman. In BoJack Horseman, BoJack works really hard to become a famous actor, in which he does exceed. And the fundamental reason for this is because he did not receive validation, praise, or love as a child. He was told constantly by his mother,
"You ruined me, BoJack.
I know.
You better grow up to be something great, to make up for all the damage you've done."
I will.
The moment that really stuck out to me was when he was nominated for an Oscar, and he had the dilemma of, if I get on that stage, will I actually feel any different? If I win this Oscar, will I actually finally feel happy? And the truth is, he wouldn't. He'd maybe feel amazing one night of his life after winning the Oscar. But the truth is, his sadness and emptiness came from within. It wasn't something that needed to be healed from an outward place. It needed to be healed from an inward place. And he wasn't in a place to do that. He didn't understand how to work on himself and get better. For so long, whether it was real or in my head, I believed the people in my life saw me as a lost cause. To me, I felt like secretly people thought I was overreaching and striving for forms of achievement I was not capable of, that my dreams were purely just fantasies that would never be real. I wanted to prove myself and everyone wrong and fly high. I wanted my partner and my friends to believe in me. I didn't want to let them down or leave me because I was a lost cause. I didn't know I could soar in different ways. I felt like being sober, losing weight, and going back to school were the bare minimum forms of improvement. I didn't recognize the strength it took to do those things because it felt like everyone was supposed to do that. It was the baseline requirement. But I also resented the idea of giving up or settling, because where else would I get that feeling of being special back? How could I ever feel like I was worth something if I was a nobody? How could I believe in myself and my long-lost status of being special if no one cared about my work? I felt as though my art, and by extension myself, had no meaning if it wasn't recognized and adored at a large scale. My work was a call into the void, a cry into the vast openness pleading for meaning. My art was my way of expressing myself, a way for me to make sense of my brief existence.
What is this brief mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy? History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
I wanted my feelings and thoughts to have purpose and validation. I wanted the solidarity of others. I craved to be seen. I wanted to be heard. But I felt like no one was listening. This is why I stopped creating for a while. And these days I am way more actively creative than I used to be. But I still have periods of low creativity when I'm faced with the reality that my work is not being seen by the audience I'm promoting it to. Oftentimes, we rely on social media for validation, whether it's a weight loss photo or just a funny meme you like. We crave the reactions of others and their feedback. We also use it as a means of comparing ourselves to others. Sometimes I'll see friends of mine getting married or getting their dream jobs, and I feel like I've fallen behind. Or I'll see other artists with millions of likes and views on their videos and think to myself, my art must suck because almost no one likes my posts or videos. I found myself in a place of loneliness and didn't know how to escape. I didn't know how to exist when no one else was aware of my existence. So that's why when I recently started trade school, I found myself in an internal crisis. I was happy to be going back to school, and like I said earlier, I really love working on cars, but I was terrified by the idea that I was just settling. I felt like I was sealing my fate of being forgotten and someone that was never special to begin with. Then the other day, I sat down and revisited a favorite video game of mine with my boyfriend. It's called Before Your Eyes. Spoilers ahead if you haven't played this game. The game tells a story of a soul pleading his case to the goddess of the afterlife to see if they will be able to get in. The soul recounts his story to the orator in preparation for his judgment. The story the soul tells is how he was just a little boy that became a world-renowned artist, and he got to be with his childhood crush, and everyone lived happily ever after. However, that is not the real story, and the orator asks them to tell the story again without lying. The boy then tells the real story of how he got sick at age 11 and died young. It's a beautiful game, and I highly recommend it if you haven't played already. What stuck out to me was how the little boy felt pressure to be successful. His idealized future was one where everyone loved him, and he was famous, and his work was recognized at a large scale. His mother pushed him to be a talented musician because she wasn't able to succeed as a musician herself. And towards the end of his life, the boy writes about how he wishes he wasn't such a loser for giving up and dying. His mother reads the story he wrote about himself, and before he dies, she reads her own version of the story, of how he lived a short life, but while he was alive, he touched the lives of others around him. How he made everyone's lives better by just being in it, and he didn't need to do more than that. He was more than enough. That his impact on others made him special, not whether or not he achieved fame or success. His life was beautiful, and it was a full one. Initially, after playing, I didn't 100% latch onto this idea. I was too busy crying. But the following morning, I was kind of struggling with the crisis that led to this video. My boyfriend came into the room, and I was on my laptop starting this script. I was hoping writing about my feelings could help me work through them. I wanted to talk to him about these feelings, but I had been going through this for a while and didn't want to seem like a broken record. However, I opened up about it and we talked it through. Whether it was intentional or not, he echoed the themes of Before Your Eyes from the night before. He said, "The best way to be special is by impacting the people in your life. You don't need to be famous or legendary to be someone that's worth something. You can help or be there for people who need it. You can be memorable to a stranger by just being kind. That's the best way to shine." This really helped me snap out of my own head. For me, being special wasn't truly about being the smartest or greatest. I just wanted to be loved and seen. The praise I got as a child wasn't uplifting for me because it fed into the idea of me being noteworthy, but because it was a form of love I was severely lacking. It was the only love I had. Being special or having meaning doesn't need to come from being a billionaire, a famous actor, or the scientist that cures cancer. The purest form of being special comes from how we treat those around us, and that feedback loop of love comes from kindness. The search for purpose should come from what genuinely makes you happy, but meaning shouldn't come from being powerful or important. Your self-worth isn't tied to status or achievements. It's tied to who you are and how you impact the people around you. Sometimes I don't believe I have truly changed. I worry that deep down I am still that loser that I hated being, that all my progress is precarious and one misstep will lead me back to my old ways. But I have changed. I'm brighter, more motivated, and a lot kinder to myself and others. I'm actually happy most days, and it reflects in my relationships with others. I care more than I used to. I know I'm scared of not being one of the greats, but I can be a great person to myself and those around me, and that is meaningful enough. You are special. You are important. You don't need to be what people expect you to be. You are worth something. You do have meaning.